Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. So we've been talking a lot on the channel about the scope of the Mandalorian story and its spin-offs. We've already had the Book of Boba Fett Season 1, Star Wars Ahsoka begins filming this month, and the Mandalorian Season 3 is expected before the end of the year. And undoubtedly my dear friends, other shows will be announced too, and our first hint of that came the other day when StarWars.com announced that a Mando Plus panel will be a highlight at Star Wars Celebration, wherein the creatives behind the Mandalorian are going to discuss where the future of the Mandoverse is going to lead, and this got me thinking about one series in particular, one that I'm going to argue could be one of the most significant out of the lot, if of course it's still on the table. I'm of course talking about Rangers of the New Republic, and hopefully at Star Wars Celebration we will hear official word on the project. Now there have been so many rumours about the series, a lot of gossip, but nothing much official. Of course originally the show was going to focus on Cara Dune from The Mandalorian, a former shock trooper from Alderaan who once served in the Alliance to restore the Republic, and of course the New Republic. But after Gina Carano's departure, we were told the show had been shelved, and this was indefinite. But I feel as though the news about Rangers being shelved was kind of misconstrued a bit, because many fans took it to mean that it was cancelled. But then last October, Kathleen Kennedy came out with a bold statement that rocked all of our assumptions. In Empire magazine, where she spoke about the Book of Boba Fett and the future of Star Wars, she said that plot threads and elements of what Rangers was going to be would be reformulated in some way, especially in the Mandalorian's future seasons. But she kind of hinted that the show is still happening, but is on the back burner and by no means a priority for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Again, no word that it was officially cancelled or anything like that, just that it's not a priority right now. So there is still hope that the show will happen, but with a new protagonist and direction. In the past I reported that Making Star Wars heard that Lucasfilm want to do more with Cobb Vanth, and rumours circulated that he would be the star of the show, whereas other outlets like the Illuminati heard that Bo-Katan or Paul Sun-Hyung Lee's Carson Teva could be the focus. Now whatever the case, we probably will hear some kind of official announcement for it next month, but personally my dear friends, I don't think it's dead. In fact, I think that Rangers of the New Republic, or a new spin-off just like it, that focuses on the political landscape following Return of the Jedi, could be the single most important show this entire era will hold. As I say, whether it keeps the same name or changes, the Mandoverse needs to include a show that takes place right at the end of this era, that shows us the collapse of the New Republic and the transformation from the Imperial Remnant into the First Order. You see, one of the biggest flaws of the Sequel Trilogy is that they never established the scope of the First Order. In other words, we were just supposed to believe that this was a new empire, but the trilogy did very little to expand upon the political landscape by the time of The Force Awakens, 30 years after Return of the Jedi and 25 years after The Mandalorian. And yet this is a fundamental aspect for fans to understand if we're to believe the credibility of the First Order as a dominant, terrifying regime. Now, The Mandalorian is so great in giving early context by showing us an increasingly threatening Imperial Remnant, a group of fanatics dedicated to the late Emperor's revival and restoration of the Galactic Empire. The Mandalorian takes place a good 25 years before The Force Awakens, as I said, but Favreau and Filoni are showing us how things are being set up for the inevitable fall of the New Republic, and a show dedicated to that could be a vital piece of the puzzle. Now, as with a lot of things in the Disney Star Wars era, a lot of the information we know comes from the novels and comics. It's not like we don't know what happened to the New Republic in canon, because novels like Bloodline, Before the Awakening, and others do give context to the final days of that republic. But it would be great to see a visualization of that and an expansion of that story. A lot of these books came out before The Mandalorian, and now that we're hooked on our heroes, give us a greater scope story with heavy consequences and adventure. And more than anything, show us the political disarray within the New Republic, how the small failings and carelessness led to their ultimate demise. When Palpatine was defeated at the end of Episode 6, the impacts were felt across the galaxy. That moment was the catalyst for the fall of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic. And there is this enormous 3 decades gap between Episodes 6 and 7. The Mandalorian is starting to fill in that space 5 years after Return of the Jedi, but hopefully if Favreau and Filoni aim to make shows that lead up all the way to the sequels, we could see the New Republic fall. So now let's look at a canon deep dive into where things went wrong for the New Republic. When it first began, the first Chancellor chosen was the former leader of the rebels, Mon Mothma. She took charge leading the New Republic, and her first action was to give up the emergency wartime powers that Palpatine had once been granted. Instead, Mon Mothma chose to drastically demilitarize this new government. She reduced their military capacity to practically zero, insisting this was the time of peace. Next up, she entrusted civil defense to individual member worlds of the New Republic, but unfortunately, this ultimately led to the downfall of the New Republic tactically speaking. The Imperial Remnant and Imperial sympathizers who waited decades for a slip-up saw their opportunity to bounce back. They started by recruiting stormtroopers and building their own navy, reconstructing the best of the former Empire's military, and this was in direct defiance of the ban that was imposed by Mon Mothma. As those remnants of Imperial control persisted throughout the galaxy and began to bide their time, there was plenty of politics at play as well. A crime syndicate called the Amaxian Warriors took part in a plot to stir controversy in the Senate by publicly exposing that Senator Leia Organa was the daughter of Darth Vader. Simultaneously, the disarray within the politics of the Republic caused several worlds who sympathized with the Imperial Remnant to formally secede from the Republic and side with the growing regime, and at this point, the Remnant rebranded themselves as the First Order. These events and the general inaction of the Galactic Senate caused Leia Organa to retire from her seat and form the Resistance, a paramilitary organization that would actually take action against the rise of the First Order, but unfortunately, their actions were not enough to stop what already had been set in motion. And jump forward a little bit, in The Force Awakens, the First Order put the final nail in the coffin. With the newly operational Starkiller base, the First Order annihilated the New Republic's defense fleet, and of course the Hosnian system, which at the time was home to Chancellor Vilsham and the New Republic Senate. And so, the New Republic, which had only begun 3 decades prior, was no more. Now, a lot of these events are too far ahead from the Mandalorian timeline, but a Mandalorian spin-off that focuses on the New Republic earlier in the timeline could set up more intricate details that display why their failure was so huge. Some say we've already seen hints of this in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett that show the incompetence of the New Republic, notably in failing to track down the Imperial Remnant and often their lack of manpower. We have scarcely seen but a handful of X-Wing patrol officers. It just seems as though the New Republic never had any real desire or strength to secure the galaxy, and arrogance was a massive part of that. The fallen Empire and the eventual First Order were willing to clamp down on its occupations across the galaxy with military force and brutality, whereas the Republic's presence in the Outer Rim was limited to a small patrol of X-Wings. Just look at the perfect example from the Book of Boba Fett. Carson Teva and Lieutenant Reed had no desire to fill out a report when Mando fled from them in his Naboo starfighter. We've seen glimpses of Moff Gideon and the Imperial Remnant's plan for Palpatine's contingency, but I would love to see a show that gives us a detailed perspective and insight into the goings-on within the New Republic. Show us some investigations, planning, and take us on adventures with the likes of Trapper Wolf and Carson Teva. So what I'm saying is, while we will see more of the New Republic in The Mandalorian Season 3 and other spin-offs, a series that solely focuses on the New Republic that takes place at the end of this era could do justice to setting up the political landscape by the time of the sequels, 25 years down the line. It's an idea I'm sure Favreau and Filoni have in mind. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Would you like to see Rangers on the table again? And do you think we could get an announcement at Star Wars Celebration during the Mando Plus panel? If you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to leave me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and a massive welcome if you are. And if you want tons more videos not found here on YouTube, go and check out my Patreon page. The link is down there in the description. But until the next one, guys, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.